Greetings and good evening. This is Joelle, and I am the Viberarian. I am back with another episode of the Psychic Inside Show. I love having these conversations with the people who I get to meet, and I believe that everyone is psychic. You just may not realize it. And so my hope is that you will hear something during these interviews that will help you realize something about yourself so that you don't have mysteries and confusion and some of the things that we hear the guests talking about in their experiences. They grew into who they naturally were. I'm here on Tuesdays on the Viberary Collective Network, which is hosted on Blog Talk Radio. That means you can call in during the show, ask questions, interact with my guests, and join the conversation. The show line is 646-787-8436. And you can press the hashtag or pound symbol and the number 1. That lets me know that you have something that you would like to contribute or ask during each show. And I will get you on as soon as possible. Now, if you are calling to receive a psychic reading, then that does not happen until the second part of our show. The main focus this evening is going to be for us to hear about the guests and to actually have an opportunity to get to know them a little bit better. I am out there on social media, on Facebook, on YouTube, and Instagram. All of these shows are actually then posted over to the Viberary YouTube channel. That's Viberary. And you can connect with me at the Viberarian. That's THEVIBE, again for energy, RARIAN. I love to connect with the members of the Good Vibe Tribe. So if you're out there, please connect. And if you see something that's high vibe, or if you know of a person who would be fascinating to learn more about, please send me a referral, send me a direct message, connect with me, and let's do what we can to elevate the conversation. The episodes of these podcasts are also out there on iTunes, Amazon Music, TuneIn, Verbal, all of the podcast directories. You can connect to hear these in your own time and own space if you have not been able to connect up with us for the live. Now, I live in Atlanta, and I will say Atlanta is a beautiful place to be psychic. First of all, there's a lot of rich history in Atlanta, lots of kind of like an intersection, but it's also been connected to the metaphysical community for like years. There have been psychic fairs, there are psychic development schools. It pulls people from all over who want to be able to shop or offer their services in that vein. And we have a very thriving economy of people who are out there connecting with high vibe service providers for things like spiritual counseling and sound baths and Reiki. I mean, there's just so much. It's really beautiful to see. But one thing that I've realized is that there are pockets and communities of psychics, and we're all intersecting. So I oftentimes have people on my show who then tap me into a whole new vein of other people that they are connected with, part of their tribe. And tonight's guest is actually connected through someone who was on this show before. Her name is Leah the Sun Star. Leah is a beautiful spirit. I totally enjoyed my conversation with her, and she ran down a whole bunch of people that she said I needed to really talk to. So when people I admire and think highly of recommend people they think highly of, I'm sure that there is a reason for it, and I'm off to explore that connection. And my guest this evening graciously accepted my invitation to come on the show. So tonight I'm welcoming and happy to make your acquaintance, Berwyn Kemp, or Prophet BK, as they like to say. Berwyn, welcome to the Psychic Inside Show.
Thank you so much for having me. I am privileged and honored to be here.
Oh, it's wonderful. So, the group that Leah and some of the folks that have been on my show recently. I think it's like Raise Your Vibrations, right? It's a long-standing group with many hundreds of members. And Berwyn, are you also in Raise Your Vibrations?
Yes, I am actually I'm on the board for the nonprofit organization for Raise Your Vibration Group.
See, that's beautiful. So we have, and you all have been operating, 10 years maybe?
Yes, about that long. Yes, that's true.
Okay,
that's
so
true.
It's a whole community of people who are gathering to do exactly that. Raise their vibration, raise your vibration, raise each other collectively together. So I know that you are a bit younger than me, but you seem to have had quite a lot of experience in terms of coming into and being comfortable with your gifts. Do you resonate with the term psychic? Is that how you identify?
I've learned to be all things to all people. So the word doesn't bother me, but I understand sometimes in society people have connected a negative connotation to it. So when I'm in certain settings, I know how to move amongst people.
And so certain settings, we're here in the South, and for all of Atlanta's progressiveness, when you kind of step outside the metro area or into certain pockets, we are in the Bible Belt, right? So I saw in your bio that you are minister turned mystic. So let's talk about that. How does one turn from minister to mystic?
Awakening. It's always been there. You know, I remember as a kid, I'm originally from Toledo, Ohio, and I was actually the paper boy when I was like 13 years old. So what I used to do is I would sneak the newspaper to my room and read the horoscopes.
Okay.
And I felt like I was doing something that was so mystical and so, usually when you're restricted from doing something, it makes you more inquisitive to find out exactly why shouldn't I be doing this? Why shouldn't I be reading this? So for me as a young man, being raised in a Pentecostal church around a lot of the high vibration energy of praise, worship, the prophetic, healings, gifts, the laying on of hands, I just always felt like it was too confined for me. And even when you read in the Bible, Jesus was not even in the church. He hung out with the nobodies that quote unquote society says, the has-beens and those type of things. So I wanted to be more like him. And I didn't want to be in the four walls of the church. It was just too confining for me. I was like, this is a little stifling.
Well, now in the Pentecostal church, that is very charismatic. So you had like speaking in tongues and prophetic. Like I know I've been to service, and there'd be a whole time period when people would come forward and the prophet or prophetess would lay hands and make proclamations, and if it was speaking in tongues, and someone would receive and interpret that. So was that the kind of environment where there was spiritual movement in the context of the church container?
From the mother's womb.
Okay.
I came out. I'm shocked my mama didn't have me on the altar. But so that's what I witnessed as a kid growing up. But like I said, it was real and it was authentic, but I always felt like there was not only more of the mechanics, but a science behind it, because I'm also a science buff. So I was more into the universe, the atoms and molecules, and how does this work and how does that work? So, I was raised on the altar, praying, got filled with the Holy Ghost about the age of 10 with the evidence of speaking in tongues.
Okay.
We did a lot of fasting, a lot of praying, and I was graced that a lot of the elders saw the gifts that was in me, and so they put me up under the tutelage. But that whole thing really transitioned when I turned 17 years old, and I sat up under a pastor by the name of Dr. Pat McKinstry in Toledo, Ohio. And she was the one who began to really birth the prophetic gift that was already in me. And then that's when my whole journey began.
Okay, so when you were a kid, were you having prophetic things? Like, were you saying stuff about people or seeing visions? And that were you able to express that in the church, or was that only after encountering the Reverend Pat, as you said?
To be honest, I have these experiences from a child. I can remember about being 3 or 4, seeing spirits. And, of course, you know, my mom was straight Pentecostal, so when I would tell her, because I wouldn't want to go to sleep at night in my room because I saw stuff walking around, and she would come in and she would get down on our knees and we would pray, and she'd be like, okay, now you can go to bed, they're gone. And I would be laying in bed like, no, they're not gone, but hey, if you say they're gone, well, we're not going to have this discussion no more. But I see somebody sitting in that chair over there.
Okay. Okay, so you had clairvoyance, then you had the sight to be able to see energies that were not in human form any longer.
Yeah. And I'm not going to say it was scary. It was just because it was unknown, and I didn't have anyone at that time at that young age to explain anything to me. I began to learn how to turn it off. Probably by the time I got about 7 or 8, I stopped seeing spirits, but my intuition was always on point. Like, I knew when things were going to happen. And even to this day, I'm 46 years old now, and me and my mom had a conversation, and she said, well, I knew you was intuitive when you were a child. She said, because I always saw it in your eyes. And now this is my mom who's a straight Pentecostal. Tongue toter, Bible quoting, devil cussing out. When she said intuitive, I was looking at her like, I didn't even know you knew that word, but okay. So yeah, a disclaimer, my mom's side was Pentecostal. My dad's side was spiritualist.
Okay. So that's an interesting intersection, because spiritualists are, I won't say they're anti-Pentecostal because they're not, but it's a freer form of spiritual connection than, say, a structured Pentecostal.
True.
Okay.
So I got to experience that when I was around my dad's side of the family, because I have an aunt that's a spiritualist. And so when I was around her, I was listening to back then, I'm telling my age, back then it was cassette tapes she would listen to. And she was listening to Wayne Dyer. She was listening to Louise Hay, all these different people. I would hear the, tapes when we would be in the car, and they'd be like, oh, life is good. Repeat after me. Life is good, and all that flows to me is abundant. And I would just be in the back seat like, huh? What is this? And I was, like, what's this? And then I would be at church on Sunday, and, we were speaking in tongues and dancing, but then when I would be around my aunt, I would hear a whole other type of, and for me, the curiosity also came because I saw my mom's side of the family Pentecostal, my dad's side that was spiritualist, and how do I say this without sounding judgmental? I noticed that the side that was spiritualist had a little bit more success. A little bit more stability. I kind of noticed it was like, okay, I'm hearing that this stuff is supposed to be not right, it's da-da-da-da, but they're being successful. So what's going on over here that I don't know about? So that's where the curiosity for me came with the mysticism.
And on your father's side, did you come from then a family of mystics that were actually doing more practicing than what you were aware of? Did you find out later that everybody was coming to Auntie for messages and for remedies?
Yeah. How did you know that? You're exactly right. I actually, one of my spirit guides that follow me is my grandmother's aunt. So it's my great-great aunt that my grandmother was named after, and I never knew who she was, but I kept getting readings, and people kept telling me, there's a lady that's following you that wants to talk to you. Her name is Lily. And I kept looking at them like, no, only Lily I know is my grandmother, and she's still alive, so I don't know who you're talking about. So I had a conversation with the aunt, who's a spiritualist, and I told her, and she was like, oh, that's your great-aunt Lily. And I was like, who? And she was like, she's the person that your grandmother was named after, and she was a medium, a tarot reader, and I was just like, okay, so that's who's been following me around. And when they described her, they always described her, but she always, description sounded like my grandmother.
Oh, I love it. See, what about on your, let me cross over. So what about on your mother's side? Was there some in the context of church, seers and prophetesses manifested in that bloodline as well?
Yes. So on my mom's side, my grandmother was a prophetess and a preacher, an evangelist, missionary. Mm-hmm. All of my aunts and uncles on my mom's side, they either or are on the staff. Actually, I have an uncle that's a bishop in the PAW, and he's actually the archbishop over 3 or 4 churches, and he has Pentecostal churches in Africa.
Okay. So in their own way, both families are sides of your family. You got it two-fisted. You came by it naturally to be this intersection because you're like minister turned mystic. So like that's almost very literal kind of merger of these two upbringing sides of the coin. And I think that's so fascinating because it's almost like the best of both worlds, if you will, if those worlds were not like causing you to stress for your gifts, you know.
Right. Well, the stress left once I moved to Atlanta in '98.
Okay. Well,
once I left Toledo.
Well, so at 17, when you were I want to get it right. You said Reverend Pat, Pastor Pat,
Bishop Dr. Pat McKinstry.
Okay, Pat McKinstry. So, like, what was it about that then? The pathway that you were set about, and is it he or she? I'm sorry, I didn't want to make sure I'm correct.
It's a she.
Okay. So what was it at 17 that happened in the conversation? How did your path change after that?
With her, I got more one-on-one, and she's from the old school Kojic, so we literally would like leave Bible study, and it was a Methodist church, quote unquote. So, you know, we was already talked about in the city because women weren't supposed to be pastors. And the name on the building was Methodist, not realizing we had a whole praise and worship team, an intercessory prayer team, a prophetic team. We just were not Methodist, of course. But, you know, we got a lot of slack for that. But with her, I got the one-on-one because Pastor McKinstry is definitely a spiritual mother to a lot of us that sat under her because she literally would sit with us. When she would get home, we would make sure she got saved, you know, and make sure she had something to eat because Pastor would forget to eat because she was so busy doing ministry. And she would say, oh, y'all can sit down. And we would sit down on the floor, and she would sit in this arm resting chair like a recliner. And she would just talk about her childhood and seeing the mysteries of prayer and the miracles and the healings that she saw up under Bishop James. And some of the old people like the Oswalds and Kenneth Hagin. And, you know, she talked about the old school Pentecostal people who were mystics, you know, the ones who would come in, they would speak in tongues and stare into space. And then they would be stuck there for like 30 minutes. And then when they would come to, they would just start prophesying to people, laying hands on people, seeing cancer fall out of people's bodies, tumors being removed. So when I sat under her, I began to get the energy of the mysticism of Christianity, which has kind of been lost to this new modern age thing that has kind of hit the world where everybody's just kind of more on a religious end and not really having a relationship with God, spirit, and the ancestors, which are also in the Bible, but that's another story.
He said, let me drop that crumb right there, right?
Yeah.
So you had a experience that broadened your perspective and connected the dots for you in a different way. And like, so did you all begin to do those activities with her as you were gathered in circle, or did you get sent out of the nest, little birds, to go learn more elsewhere?
We actually started learning up under her. She literally, like, she would tell us, well, this is one of the things, too, about Bishop McKinstry. She would always tell us, I'm not raising you up to be church members. I'm raising you up to be leaders. And what I'm teaching you, you should be able to go anywhere in the world and start your own ministry. If you have 3 tools, she always said, the word, prayer, and intercession, and worship.
Okay.
The 3 foundation principles to a relationship with the God consciousness of this universe. You can be successful anywhere, no matter what denomination you are, no matter what religious sect you're a part of. If you have that intimacy with the God of the universe, the God that's within you, there's nothing you can't do. And so with that, she would tell us, those of us that were young prophets, she would say, you think you're a prophet? It's easy to prophesy in the church with a microphone in your hand with your nice suit on and your Gucci cologne.
Mm-hmm.
She said, but if you want to find out if you're a real prophet, go out there and prophesy in the ghetto. Go out there to the projects and start prophesying to people and speaking life into people. And she would always teach us the real ministry is not within the 4 walls. The real ministry is out there in the street. You want to see the healings? Go out there into the streets. Go out there to the places where other people don't want to go. And that's what she began to push us to do. So that's when I kind of, at a young age, kind of started getting the title prophet because I just did what Pastor said. So I would go out there, and I had my own little thing. I would say, write down today's date, this time next year, and then I would just start prophesying. This is what God's going to do. And I started doing that at 17, 18 years old.
Okay. And did you go out and do it in the streets? And on the
outside we had fun. We used to bring in gangbangers, drug dealers, everything. Our church, when I left, we had at least over 600 members. When I joined, I think we had maybe 100 members. And within 2 years of her teaching us and training us and activating us, the church was seating 600 people. When I joined, we used to have Bible study in a little classroom with maybe 10 chairs. Within the next year, we literally had to go to the basement. The next year, we got so big, we literally had to have Bible study in the sanctuary.
Okay. So all of you were moving spirit in people and connecting them with that creator God self and, packing the pews, as they would say, right? So
yeah.
What moved you out of that in Toledo, or were you doing that also here, or that was in Toledo?
That was in Toledo. I left Toledo in 96. And
so right around did you come down here?
No, actually, this is a funny story. My parents moved to Atlanta, Georgia in 1992, and I did not want to come. So I got my own place, and I said bye-bye.
Okay.
I did not want to leave Toledo. First of all, I didn't want to leave my pastor. Like, I was learning so much. I was like, no, this is where God want me. Mind you, I never prayed about it. I never asked God, is it time for me to leave the house? I got spoiled. I was spoiled. So when the move did happen in 96, it was a lot of situations or circumstances that started pushing me to feeling like it was time for me to leave. And God was like, leave. And so I left Toledo, and I thought I was slick. I moved to Cincinnati because it's like an hour away. I said, well, I'm an hour away. I could drive back on Sundays to be at church, da-da-da. Well, I got to Cincinnati and got in a relationship, and the partner I got into a relationship wanted to move to Atlanta.
Okay.
And that's how I got to Atlanta.
Carrot dangling on the stick, right?
Right.
We coaxed out of our comfort zone sometimes.
Yeah, God knew how to get me down here.
So when you got down here, I was here in 90 for college. We're within a few years of each other in age, and 92 was a great year for me, college-wise. 96, the Olympics came. It really did shift Atlanta into like a different vibration. But, in that era, Dr. Hillside International Truth Center was like, to me, the biggest spiritualist traditional church movement in Atlanta. Did you go to Hillside at all, or did you connect with the church, or were you still then in your own ministry?
Oh, no. I was still stuck to my home church. So actually, Bishop had an apostle that she knew that was starting a church here. And so I went over there to help him and became his praise and worship leader.
Okay.
So I was still trying to stay Pentecostal.
Okay. So you're still deeply, in the church.
Yeah, I was trying not to leave, but Spirit kept saying, okay.
So how did you eventually move out of, have you moved out of church, or are you doing both, in and out?
As of now, I don't want to say I'm doing both. I am connected to a ministry. It's not per se a church. It's actually a temple that is a Word of God teaching church, but we also practice hoodoo and conjure and root work.
Okay, so
which is all in the Bible.
I'm saying that's a real interesting sentence to have all those words in it, right? Because the average person is not necessarily versed in like a biblical connotation, but for those who are in the South and certainly in communities where you have like an indigenous connection to your spirituality, things like root work, hoodoo, or other ways of connecting with ancestors and the elements, that's very familiar because it's like something your great grandmother's mixed up in a jar, and that kind of thing that's passed down from person to person, that it's an intersection of culture and Christianity, if you will, but it tends to get misrepresented in the narratives that divide us away from spirituality. So when you began to understand that you were drawn to do root work or hoodoo, what was that like within your Pentecostal container?
Well, it was, Spirit knows how to open up doors and just push you on through. Say, okay, time to go. But the shift originally came in 2010. I went to help my aunt, who's a spiritualist, and I went to help her clean the garage. And we got out to the garage, and she said, we're going to pray first. And I'm looking like, pray? Like, why are we praying before we clean it? We just here to clean the garage. Well, she grabbed my hands and she started praying for me to elevate, for me to be enlightened, for me to find my calling. Like, that whole prayer just went somewhere as it was not supposed to. I almost ended up on the floor when she got done with that prayer.
Oh,
and after that prayer, she had me sit down and watch the DVD, The Secret.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the beginning of me coming into the metaphysics. And for me, it was easy because everything that they talked about when it comes to the laws of the universe is biblical. There's nothing about the laws of the universe that you can't find in the Bible. Everything from the power of your words, that's right there in the Bible.
I am.
Your words, your thoughts, as a man thinketh, so is he. The power of life and death is in your tongue. Ask, ye shall receive. Seek, and ye shall. So it was just like, okay, I'm like, wait a minute. This this metaphysical stuff ain't nothing wrong with it. Like, why are they trying to demonize it when it's all the Bible? But the only thing that was taken away with that is that when you're dealing with Christianity or different religions, they have their own doctrines and dogmas.
Right.
And so the only thing I saw different was the fact that you didn't have to pay your tithes every Sunday. You don't have to live holy. You don't have to wear a long skirt to your ankles. You could wear makeup. It was just for me, the difference was there was no rules and regulations. It was in a relationship with God of the universe and the laws that he put into the universe for all of us to use. And so for me, when I started getting into metaphysics, it was very easy because it was very scriptural. And I've always been an avid, like the Holy Spirit would lead me and guide and direct me. And I asked him, I said, now, if this ain't right, Holy Ghost, you better let me know now. And as I kept delving into it and I kept studying, I was like, okay, this ain't nothing wrong with this. And then once I got to Hoodoo, I met a group called the Hoodoo Bible Study Group that's spearheaded by a young man by the name of Cosmic New Age. And he's a preacher, a prophet, and a root worker. So when I started sitting in their Bible studies, and he literally would start talking about the word and then put this here and put that there, and Mediumship was in the Bible. Ancestor veneration is in the Bible. People don't pay attention to it, but in the Bible, in Daniel, it called Daniel the master magician.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got a little offended because I'm like, well, the church never talked about that part. I'm like, it's in the King James Bible. It's not, so that's, for me, it was easy to walk into that. And then when I began to understand the history of Hoodoo and that it was originated by our ancestors for their safety, for their protection, and for their connection to their spiritual roots of their original spiritual practices, it was just natural for me. And then I prayed and asked God one day, I said, so God, this Hoodoo stuff is a little different. And I had bought a Hoodoo tarot deck. And I told God, I said, well, do you want me to really study this and get deeper into it? The next day, my sister called me and said, hey, I got a package coming for you through Amazon. Be on the lookout. Why did my sister, who is not a spiritualist, as a matter of fact, she used to be an atheist, why did she send me the exact same Hoodoo tarot deck that I had already bought?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Message.
And I was just like, okay, all right, I got the message loud and clear. So that's why it was easy for me to make that transition from the minister to mystic, because I believe that we put titles and words in certain places that make people feel or think a certain way, when at the end of the day, it's all God, it's all spirit, and it's all one.
Mm-hmm. And some people, that's a challenging notion, I think mostly because, as you said, doctrinal teaching, which exists in all spiritual practices, like the New Age metaphysical practices develop doctrines too that then begin to reject certain ways of being. And I think that's part of our human trying to put our human minds around stuff. We bring that into the spiritual conversation in a way. For those who are listening to the show that may not know, what is Hoodoo? And then would you answer then also to the difference between Hoodoo and Vodou?
Okay. So Hoodoo is not a religion, but it's spiritual practices that the ancestors created that they learned from some of the indigenous people who were here. Hoodoo connects with plants, medicine, conjure, which is conjuring up the spirits, conjuring up the ancestors, and of course, root work is dealing with the herbs, the earth, the planet, even the astrology. All of it was combined and created in a time of slavery where we had to learn how to incorporate our African spiritual principles with Christianity. And the biggest spell book they found was the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There are a lot of people that would be uncomfortable with it, saying that the Bible is full of spells, That's
they would feel uncomfortable saying that. Well, they'll feel. But what's sad is that everything that they try to denounce is right there in the Bible. I've had people argue with me about mediumship, but if you want to go to the Bible, it's mediumship all in the Bible, because Jesus stood on Mount Transfiguration and had a whole conversation with Elijah and Moses.
Right. Yeah, and Joseph dreamed, and helped the king plan for his famine. And, you know what I'm saying? There's so many instances of angels appearing to Elizabeth and Mary. I mean, the mysticism was more accepted in the biblical context than it has been by the readers of the Bible in modern times.
Well, I think that's beginning to change, though.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of people that are looking for more and looking for answers. And so, especially this young generation, they just kind of they'll work for grandma now, but
right.
I'm going to find my own path. My generation, we was told, look, we were saved because our mama made us be saved.
Right,
we didn't get saved because we love Jesus. You're going to live saved. You're not going to listen to R&B music. We had no choice. But once we all became adults and went on our own spiritual path, then God led us on the path where we were supposed to go. And I think this younger generation, they're totally different from us. They're looking for truth. They're looking for their power. They're looking for who their authentic self is. We really didn't have that liberty. We was a little bit more,
right.
kind of controlled. You know, this is what you're going to be. When you get out my house, you do what you want to do. But as for me and my house, we going to serve the Lord.
We go to church, right? We go to church.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that's driven a lot of people. Well, it's two things. So it's driven people away from church because the routine, discipline, structure of control, like you have to go to church. It had nothing to do with your having a relationship with God. It was about being in the right place because good folk be at church on Sundays, right? But that's part of the shift from the Piscean to Aquarian, that we are coming out of institution and structure into an individuated exploration of the world, and that includes our spiritualism. We're just at the very, very beginning of that energy, but it's pretty cool so far.
Yeah. And I will also say this. As mystic as I am, as intuitive and hoodoo and making oils and herbs and lighting candles, I will never, ever be able to take away the foundation, because the church not only taught me foundation, but it gave me discipline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does that. I mean, what do they say? Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he was old, he will not depart.
That's true.
Right. But one of the things that you're talking about is like the discipline of, well, you know, we know that every Sunday we devote time, or Sunday and Wednesday, or Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, depending on your denomination, or 7 days a week, depending on how deep you grew up in church. But to have that time set aside, that this is the day that we are going to be in spirit, from breakfast through lunch at the church, through afternoon to revival at night, that discipline of setting aside time for conversations with God lends itself well to developing meditative practices and rituals that are yours later because of that discipline that you speak about. So I definitely get that.
Mm-hmm. And it's a lifestyle.
Right. Well, it's like the way of being, right? Because I'm sure you can't imagine not talking with God and spirit about your life at this point. Like, why would I do this without that connection versus having to, like, how do I incorporate this into my living? You already had it as, let's see, did God tell me to leave here? You know, God didn't show me the signs. You were open to that GPS, if you will, being active for you. So when you started doing, so we got hoodoo and root work, and of course, like voodoo and Ifa, those are the African names for traditions that then these are derived from, like voodoo, hoodoo. These are all derivatives of the original spiritual practices of indigenous Africans, you know, and people tend to get the words confused on purpose, I think, because that's been put out there. You will always, when I first got down to the South, I would always hear people talk about, oh, somebody's going to put roots on you. You know, it was like not roots workers, right? It was about having something harmful done to you. Oh, you better not do this. This person might, you know, go to the hoodoo man and put something on you, you know, or do you want to get a love spell or things like that. It was kind of like, for me, moving from Ohio, Kansas, Ohio, down to the South, it was a conversation I'd never been exposed to before until I got down here. And then everybody would be like, oh, that's New Orleans. It's like, no, it's not, right? It's not at all. If you know to go to the sister elder in the church and she brings out a mason jar with the herbal remedy that's probably got a little shine in it, but she brings it to you.
Okay.
Get stuff out of your chest, right? That's root work, or, you know, that's working with nature from a natural point to provide healing to the body. It becomes less scary when you step out of the narrative and into the actual practices of being healed and helped by people using these wisdoms that have been passed on from ancestor to ancestor to ancestor. So you talked about ancestor veneration, and we know in the Bible there's a whole chapter of begats and begats, who was the son of seventh and the begat of whatever. I can't remember which Bible it was, but it's pages and pages of ancestor reverence through naming. And that was important to the Jewish Old Testament culture in which the Bible was, written in different contexts. So as you look to the modern day veneration of ancestors, what does that look like for you? And how are you working with that energy in your propheting and prophetic ministry and mystic ministry?
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, I will say this. I noticed my spiritual life change once I began to do ancestor veneration.
Okay.
Doors were open. Things were a little bit easier to manifest. And they've become part of my life. I think we sometimes, when people transition, because they're not physically here no more, we don't realize that they were still consciousness and energy. And so we just kind of put the obituary, in a Bible somewhere, or put it in a closet on a shelf, and we forget about them. And we forget that they existed, they have wisdom, they have knowledge that they can share and impart into us. Which is what Jesus experienced on the Mount Transfiguration. Moses and Elijah was giving him wisdom, knowledge, and information. So for me, because I know most of my ancestors were mystics and Pentecostals, I play their music for them. I make their coffee. I do certain things to incorporate the honor and the reverence for them, and saying thank you because I come from you. And what people don't understand, even if you don't have an altar, your ancestors are in your DNA. So you begin to make your heart the altar, where you can talk to them, where you can commune with them, where you can ask for wisdom and guidance, especially if you knew them and you knew some of the area of expertise. Like if you, dealing with a court case and you knew you had an uncle that was a lawyer, you could contact his energy and say, hey, I need help with this court case. He might lead you to somebody that he may have even used to work with, or he, might know some good lawyers, or, it's broader than just having an altar. It's allowing them to be a part of your life and helping you guide you on your path. And I know that my ancestors were all prophets. The spirit guide that walks with me is a prophet and a pastor. And so I know that they have been down the path, so I ask them for their guidance and for their wisdom when I teach classes. Even before I do readings, I invite them in to help them intuitively help me with the information, because I understand that they have their gifts still as well. And so it's almost like with my mantle coupled with their mantle. And it's even in the Bible. They talk about it when Elijah went up in the chariot of fire, he threw down his mantle. And Elijah had a double portion of what he had. And he wasn't even his blood. He wasn't even a blood relative. So imagine if you begin to connect with and just honor. People have to understand the word is veneration, not ancestor worship. We don't worship them.
So the difference in venerating and worship is what?
Venerating is honoring them, thanking them. Worship is saying, oh, we thank you. Worship is adoration towards a person for who they are, which is we only worship God, the Most High. We venerate, which is honoring, respecting, and showing gratitude towards.
That's a key distinction, right? And I think that also is applicable because we tend to venerate the hierarchies outside of our dimension, to say angelic beings, but it's like angelic beings are a form of our ancestor. And so the relationship of mutual aid and support exists, but we've been taught that it's, bow and subject yourself to the higher being that you could never hope to become yourself because you're low, sinful, and fallen. That tends to separate us from all of the dimensional beings that are really of that same one spark of God that are here to support and love and light each other.
Correct.
Now, do you find, it's always interesting because you encounter doctrinal, I won't say corruption because that might sound a little harsh, but when you see people having practices that you're like, oh, that's not how that works, right? Like, that's not aligned. Or, for a person who may have an ancestor that they're working with in a worshipful dynamic, have you encountered people who have gotten themselves into problems because of this?
I haven't, because I mind my business. I've seen some things, but I've learned to just let people follow their path. Mm-hmm. They'll learn. Because people don't want to listen.
Right.
People want to do what they want to do. They want to feel like they're right. And you just be like, oh, okay. But I have seen some people, I haven't seen them get really jacked up, but I have seen them doing it for the wrong intentions.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like I know people who have created an ancestor altar because they just want to make money. And I'm just looking like, oh, okay. Well, you could do all kinds of the root work, make as many oils as you want, light as many green candles, but at the end of the day, you still have to have a relationship with the spirits that walk with you.
Right. And I think a lot of people step into conjuring accidentally or without education and beginning to work with energies that they're not really prepared to work with.
Yeah.
Is that a tactful way of saying?
Yes, yeah. That's a nice way of saying it.
If you can call the rain and you've learned, some modality of calling rain, but then you call a flood onto your house that nothing else is destroyed, but you conjured a rainstorm and your roof got collapsed because of that. And that sounds far-fetched to some people, but that's like really, truly the power that we have that is unknown to us in terms of speaking life into things, speaking and working things into existence, and working with, if Moses can part the sea, then we know that the ability to work with nature exists within us, right?
True.
In terms
and
of
people do it for the wrong intentions, and that's where it all, and they get jacked up. Then they got to come to those of us to bring them back right.
Because if a person in church does it for the wrong reasons, the pastor embezzles money, or it turns left. It's not just in spiritualism. I think it's in all of the practices. So
yes.
As you are now, can people come to your church service? How can they connect with you? Like, I know that you're doing all of these services. I'm assuming you see clients and you hold space and teach other people. Like, what is Berwyn or Prophet BK doing now with all these spiritual gifts?
Well, I host a class on Sundays at 7 p.m. Called Spirit Speaks with Prophet BK. And it's just a space where we come together to be transparent, to learn, to grow, and just to have community.
Mm-hmm. And when is that?
You can find it. It's on Sundays. They could go to the ryv.world, and it's on the Raise Your Vibration website on our page, and you could just click on courses. And then it has a list of the different courses, because I teach on, mine is at 7 on Sundays. Leah's is every other Sunday at 3. And so that's a space where we've created where we all can just use our gifts and abilities to help teach and activate and, impart what we have been given by the grace of God to other people. So it's every Sunday, ryv.world, and they can just click on the link and they can join my Sunday classes at 7 p.m.
Okay, and is there going to be like singing and like is there a flavor of church to it, or is it?
No, we ain't that deep yet.
Okay.
No, we really right now we really do like series. So right now the topic I'm teaching on and expounding on is dreams and visions. Mm-hmm. So really we do like a check-in, see how everybody's doing, how everybody's week been going. And then we kind of go right into the topic or discussion. And I love feedback. It's not where I just sit there and do all the teaching. I ask other people that join what their perception is, what have they experienced, So it's not just me sitting there giving a dialogue the whole time, because I really don't like to be taught or preached at. I like dialogue. I like, I like interaction. So it's not like you're going to come and we're going to have some praise and worship team and then offering time and now it's time for the word. No, it's just we laid back. Some of us in our pajamas, some got on T-shirts and shorts, and we just come together for the fellowship, the communication of community. And I do usually have a topic. Like I said, I usually have a topic that I just expound on. I don't try to get too deep because you have to know how to feed people because everybody don't need too much information to go into brain overload. And then usually at the end, I save space and time where before we get off, if anybody have any intuitive questions, I will pull a tarot card deck for them, or I'll ask them if they need a answer to anything, and we'll intuitively see what spirit is saying for their situation.
So that's Sunday for those of you who are in the Atlanta metro area. And is Raise Your Vibration still meeting like on Wednesdays down in Little 5 Points?
We actually had to go back to the Zoom because of all the restrictions with COVID.
Right. Okay. But you are still meeting, and people can find that at ryv.world as well, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
What I encountered, I met Adam at the Blue Barn, I think many, many moons ago, and he had told me about that group. And so I came once or twice. This was years ago, so it was still in person. And it was like a group share. Like there was some discussion at the top, but then we split into small groups and were basically intuiting over each other, like practicing our skills, practicing our clairvoyance, clairaudience, seeing if we were, speaking what came on us to speak to other people who then were also practicing. But I also know that there were topical discussions, authors who came in. One of my previous guests, Misty Oaks Paxton, she just released her book, Focus, and I saw that she was with you all as your featured speaker at an event recently as well. So it's kind of like, it's just all kinds of things with the intention of raising your vibration. There's not just one thing that happens at this meetup, correct?
Yeah, we're kind of like the X-Men. That's what we always jokingly say. We're like the X-Men. Everybody has their gifts, their talents. We all have these different mutant gifts, and we all come together to build community. We're like a family. That's what it is, because all of us, we all talk, we all get together for lunch and dinner and things. So it's a family.
Well, that's beautiful. So people who want to connect with that group, of course, now that it's gone virtual, there's opportunity for our listeners who are not in Atlanta to be able to connect. And you, as an individual service provider and practitioner, what is it that you are able to do for people if they call you up or ring your phone?
I do spiritual readings and spiritual coaching, depending on, because some people don't need readings. Some people need coaching, and if it's not in my field or if it's not my area of expertise, I have, we have a community that I send people, like I have a friend that's a Haitian voodoo priestess. So she does more heavier things, and she does the cleansing, the baths, and all that. So if that's what they need, I'll send them in that direction. So it's like, well, for me, spiritual readings and spiritual coaching, because like I said, some people don't need readings. They need to learn how to take tools and principles to put together what it is that they already know that they need to be doing. And sometimes they just need different tools to begin to put in place to activate what it is they need to be doing or trying to manifest or walk into their purpose.
That's very true. For people who want to engage your services, how can they best reach you?
They can email me at Son of the Harvest, which is SONOFTHEHARVEST @gmail.com.
Okay, and
they can also find me on Facebook as well.
And that's at Berwyn Kemp, right?
That is correct. And my Instagram is also the same.
Okay, and that's BERWYNKEMP, all together. And of course, that contact information will be in the show notes when this goes out and is distributed, so that you can reach him. And I've got him tagged on my pages, so there's like as many entry points to the connection. But the beautiful part is that Spirit will facilitate that when the person can help you with what Spirit needs you to be helped with. I have to smile and laugh because as I'm doing the show, I'm sitting looking over at my beginnings of my ancestral altar. And I say that because I'm not a big ritual practitioner, but I'm looking at the pictures of my grandparents. And my grandfather was actually like one of the second being that had passed over that I knew of that came through in a reading for me. And prior to having these experiences, the church doctrine I learned was that the dead are asleep and then they rise on the day, right? So when I was starting to have like manifestations of my own gifts, I would always hear hymns. So when I sat in front of the reader and she said, she described this man who was there and the way that he smiled, and she said, he's singing with you through your life, and he's here to help you bring in your harvest. He's a farmer, and he would sing over my shoulder as I would play piano. He would sing the old hymns of the church. And Midwest Kansas church, not, Bible thumping United Methodist, pretty square, middle of the road doctrine. But here she's telling you that, he's here, and he's here to help you sing through life and to bring in the harvest. So when you said Son of the Harvest, and when I was receiving your communications earlier, it hit different as I'm looking at my grandfather and his farmhouse across me as we're doing this show this evening. So it's so beautiful, these types of things of revelations, that the life that we thought how life was kind of flat dimension, to find out that we're surrounded by truly a mighty host of people and beings who want nothing more for us than to be at our best. That really makes one's heart feel good. And I know it has to bring you like a deep sense of purpose to be serving others through your connection with God.
Yes, it is. I mean, the Bible calls it our great cloud of witnesses.
Yes, the mighty cloud, yes. Well, this is an interesting conversation, and one of the beautiful parts of the show is that we are able to provide our listeners with many readings, and Berwyn has agreed to provide that on air this evening. So we are going to begin to open up the phone lines. I've got already 3 people who have been waiting to speak with you. Now, for each of you who are connecting, please understand that this is a recorded show. It's going to be out there forever and ever on the internet. And you are also having your spiritual conversation in the public eye. So I certainly honor you with gratitude for being willing to open yourself up for our view as you're having this conversation with Berwyn. And but just keep that in mind. And also, this is not about any kind of third-party readings. It's not something that we're going to support because it's not ethical. So this is really about you and the questions that you have for him. And Berwyn, do you have any like guidelines or what you need from people to begin the reading? Will you need like a name or initial or anything else that they should know before we begin to connect you?
Just their name and their question.
Okay, excellent. So without any further pause here, we are going to start with our first caller. He has been holding since the very beginning. Actually, everybody's pretty much been holding with their hand raised for at least an hour. So caller 216 from Ohio, you are on the line with Berwyn. Who are we speaking with?
This is Desmond calling from Cleveland, Ohio.
Hi, Desmond. Thank you for calling this evening. So, Berwyn, go ahead.
Hey, Desmond, how are you doing?
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, my question is, like spiritually, I know I have to move out of Cleveland, and my spirit telling me to move to Atlanta. I just want to know, when do you see that? You see it happen like next year or the year after?
I see it towards the end of 2022. I see you trying to rush, so don't rush. There's still a few more things you need to square up there in Cleveland, but 2022, closer to 2022, 2022 to 23, around in that area. I see you trying to go sooner, though, but don't go sooner.
Don't go sooner? Oh, man. Okay.
Yeah, because I see you trying to go by the end of this year. That's what I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Spirit is saying be patient, because there's still some things and there's still some family members and things and some reconciliation that's going to happen before you leave.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. Appreciate that.
All right. Thank you for calling.
Desmond, thank you for calling. And if you want to go further and deeper for like, as Berwyn talked about outside of the reading, like how do you work with what the messages are, please do reach out to him for a deeper dive. Thank you so much. All right, so thank you. Our next caller is going to be with the last four digits, 1652. You're on the Psychic Inside show for Berwyn Kemp. Who are we speaking with?
Hi, my name is Keisha from North Carolina.
Hi, Keisha. All right.
Hi, Keisha.
Thanks for calling.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Well, I would like to also move, and I was wondering which way would Spirit like for me to travel and what direction?
Has Spirit given you an inkling of where to travel, where to move to?
Well, it's either like Virginia or California, but I really, and if maybe somewhere around the Gulf of Mexico,
Yeah, I keep seeing water.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I see
I would
water
like to be near
and
water.
I keep seeing a lot of water around you. And I'm gonna tell you what I'm hearing. Write down the two different locations, or the three different locations that you want. Put it up under your pillow, and when you go to sleep, ask your spirits to reveal the correct location for you. All I keep seeing though is water. There's a lot of indigenousness energy in your bloodstream, and the water is going to help bring out a lot more of your spirituality.
I know. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll do
but
that. I'll do that.
You already know, but you're battling with what you know. There's still some connections to where you at.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Peace.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, I know.
You got this, sis. You got
this. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you for calling.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Keisha. That was wonderful. I appreciate you calling this evening. And we're going to keep on moving because the phone keeps lighting up with people who are wanting to ask questions. So I appreciate all of you tuning in to the show and for this conversation with Berwyn. This is just great, and this is why we're here. So caller ending in 6439, you are on the Psychic Inside Show with Berwyn. Who are we speaking with?
Hi, this is Mindy from Washington.
Hi, Mindy.
Hi,
Yay,
Mindy.
we got 3 states. This is great. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So I recently just met a guy, and I don't remember his name. We were supposed to have, we met just briefly one night, and I just started talking to him, and like we really hit it off. But then he kissed me and left my room or whatever, and then we were supposed to have dinner the next night, and he never showed up. And I just don't know like what his name is, or if I'm ever going to see him again, or I feel like there's a hole, and I don't even know. Maybe if you guys.
So is your question,
are
you going to see him again? Is that your question? Are you going to see him again?
Or is he going to,
I feel like, can I just be honest?
Yeah.
You're going to see him again. But I keep seeing a warning sign. I feel like the reason he didn't show up is because he's also in another relationship.
I figured that much. Yeah, he's too good of a guy to not have somebody there. Yeah.
Yeah. But for you, what I would do is, I'm hearing Spirit say this is a season of you really focusing on self-care and self-love. There's some more levels of loving yourself and focusing on love within yourself that's going to match the vibration of the person that's going to come into your life. And Spirit said, don't get hooked onto one person. As you're on this journey, there's going to be other people that's going to come along that's going to seem like, oh, this is the one. It's not.
Nah. Yeah. Okay. So he's just.
But Spirit definitely wants you to. Go ahead.
I don't. I don't know even if I would see him again then, because he lives over on the other side of the mountain, and it was just a fluke thing that he was here, but. That's weird.
Oh, I see y'all running into each other.
Okay.
Wherever you met him at, in the area he's in, he frequents that area. But like I said, I see him in a relationship, so I don't know how soon it'll be, but you will run into him again. Just make sure that when you see him, you don't jump his bones and don't knock his head off, okay?
Okay. Well, I didn't do that last time. I was just, I was being Have, but there was something charismatic and redeeming about him that was different than most of them. You know, I've had a crush on Brad Pitt my whole life, and if he came in my life right now, I'd be like, sorry, Brad, but I got to go. You know, I got things to do. But this guy is a little bit different, so weird.
Now, write down the qualities of what it is that you want in a partner. And don't have a picture of a specific person, but just begin to create the energy of what it's going to feel like when you connect with that person that you want to be with.
Okay.
It's going to help you manifest it quicker.
Okay. That's good to know. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for calling, Mindy. I appreciate you coming on the show this evening. Beautiful. I love everyone's energy. Just feels so good, you know, in terms of the conversation, the energy that I'm just feeling through the phone line. So that's beautiful. Are you feeling that too?
Oh, yeah. Everybody's so warm.
Yeah, right. I'm just smiling. So that's great. I'm glad for that this evening. Oh, we've got another caller here from caller ending in 7028. You are on the Psychic Inside Show with Berwyn this evening. Who are we speaking with?
Hello, my name is Patricia. Thank you for taking my call.
Hi, Patricia.
Hello, Patricia.
Hi, Berwyn. I'd like to ask so many questions. I've felt a pull started last year for me to relocate to the Southwest, and I'm going to visit there next month, this particular state. And don't know anybody there, no family, nothing. Can you tell me, is it more of a cultural, ancestral, spiritual, and, well, hold on. trying to get this all in one question.
I can tell you what I see now. When you step foot on the ground, you're going to know the answer. There is. Are you a preacher?
No.
Do you come? Because I see preachers all around you. Do you come from a family that preaches?
There is an aunt that was one, but I don't know if any. I don't really know a lot about my family history on my mother's or father's side.
Yeah, because I see you have a very nurturing spirit. So when you go to this visit, when you step foot on the ground, I see the Holy Spirit giving you a vision of where Spirit is going to take you. I see you either, it's not a church, but it's like a spiritual community that you're going to be called to teach and impart the knowledge of everything that you've been through in your life. Are you writing a book? Because Spirit is saying it's time for you to write a book as well.
Yeah, and I just really, my attention is so spread out because I'm teaching myself new skills so that I can be a location independent business. And one of those is a book, and I'm just trying to determine which the subject to start with, and of course the monies to obtain the monies to start that, because it'll probably be self-publishing and moving forward from there, and of course learning the business.
I'm gonna tell you something that I learned at an early age. God works best with nothing, so don't stress yourself about where the resources are going to come from. When you make the move, everything's going to fall into place.
Okay. But it's time to get this book written down.
Yeah. That's all I kept seeing when you're writing. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Most definitely. But this trip, this visit, is gonna connect some dots for you.
All right. Yeah, because I'm feeling that it'll be good. And of course, I'm going to relocate there. If not the end of December, then probably January or February of next year.
Okay. Yeah, because once you make the move, there's a different portal that's going to open up for you.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, I have to get out of this negative energy here in this city and state. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you for calling, and blessing, safe travels to you as you step through your portal. How exciting. Lots of moving people, lots of relocations. We're changing our grid points up, I guess, now that some things have been made apparent to us over the last couple of years. Everybody's got their bags packed, Berwyn.
Okay. Well, that's a very key point about walking in your purpose. You have to be in the right geographical location. Because even in the Bible, the angels showed up at a certain place and time. So there's chronological time that we have to be a part of when it comes to fulfilling our purpose and our destiny.
And I would think we all don't need to go into the belly of the whale because we weren't trying to go where we needed to go to do our work.
Look, I ended up in that whale
we
before.
took
That's how I got
to her, you know.
That's how I got to Atlanta. I jumped out that well once myself.
He said, "I'm good. I'm ready to go. Where send me,
okay.
there I go." Right? All
okay.
right. We have got another caller here for a question, and so this is caller ending 7618. Who are we speaking with?
Hey, this is Stacy. How are you?
Hi, Stacy. Thanks for calling.
Thank you for taking my call.
So what's your question for Berwyn this evening?
Oh, by the way, I like your name, sir.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
How is it pronounced?
Berwyn.
Berwyn. Okay, very, very different. Never heard of that name before.
Yeah, me too. Just my dad.
It sounds like a clothing designer. It sounds like very fashionable. Yeah, very fashionable. Okay, so my name is Stacy. I'm intuitive, and I live it. Well, I'm going to be living in my mind, the way that I see it intuitively. I see myself living between New Jersey and Atlanta. So the New Jersey move is really easy. So far as the Atlanta move, do you see me buying a townhouse or either renting a townhouse, I would say, sometime in spring of 2022, between spring and summer, or between spring and fall next year?
It's going to be better spring and fall, right around the equinox, because there's going to be a changing of a season for you at that time of the year.
Okay. Do you see, for example, do you think this is March, April, May, June sometime?
More around September, October.
Oh, September, October of next year?
Yeah.
Oh, man. So you don't see it right in this.
I see it in the fall equinox. It's something about that fall that's going to have an effect on you intuitively. What I actually hear is it's going to be coming out of summer. It's going to be like the actual seasons change. There's parts of you that you're going to shed in the fall, and then there's parts of you that's also going to blossom in the fall.
So I'll know when the time will be.
Your spirit already knows.
Okay. I thought it was going to be before then. All right. Okay, so that tells me I know what I need to do. So in the meantime, I just have to put everything into plan everything, and start taking actions on things that I need to do now.
That's correct.
All right. Well, thank you. I know it's just you burst my bubble, and I'm thinking, I'm like, okay. So that well, you know what? I have more of an insight, so I don't have to rush or anything. So that sounds
right.
Good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
You got to have that good foundation and be prepared.
All right, I'll put this on the calendar so I know.
Okay. Thank you for calling.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks for calling this evening, Stacey. It's so beautiful because, in listening to these readings, it's like it's a trust exercise. Like I said, everyone is psychic. You just may not realize it, meaning all of us are connected with our intuition, our visioning, our creative, where we can see the vision of what we want our life to look like. But then like our mind begins to get in the process where we look at if this, then that, in a very logical standpoint. And what I find is when people come and connect with a spiritual counselor for a reading, it's just affirming for you, like, yep, I said it, yep. In case you were wondering, I'm going to send you a second Hoodoo deck tomorrow, and then you will have no more doubt that you're right. Message.
You hit it on the nail.
Right. I love it. So all the callers this evening that dialed in for a reading, I'm just so thankful for your energy of beauty that was added to the evening and for your willingness to have your spiritual business in the streets, if you will, in terms of having this conversation so that others can see, because many people have never had a reading before or an encounter with a psychic or intuitive. And so part of this is intended to be educational, because there is a fear that can happen where people are like, well, I don't want to hear I'm going to die. I don't want to hear bad news, that kind of fear of what is the message going to be. And so you providing the readings this evening and folks asking their questions can show people that you're not going to get smoked with fire and lightning when you pick up the phone to consult somebody about your spiritual life. I haven't seen any lightning strike anybody yet on the phone.
Okay.
Berwyn, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you this evening, and I have another amazing guest lined up for you guys next week on Tuesday, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern. And this replay will be up in the next day or two on the Viberary YouTube, as I shared. And, of course, tell your friends if you want to pass on the podcast link to them, play it on the replay, and make yourself acquainted with Berwyn. I certainly have enjoyed having a conversation with you. We kind of speak a similar language coming out of church, so I've enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah. We have to do this again. This was fun.
I know. Well, hey, we'll have to look at that, because we've got space on the Viberary Collective Network for other voices. I've got a couple of new shows and people who are going to be hosting those shows coming up. So maybe we're going to have the Prophet Hour with, Prophet BK or something in the future, as a way to increase people's knowledge with the things that you're teaching and the subjects that you're talking about, and through your unique connection with God and Spirit. I've truly been I'm smiling from ear to ear, as I usually am, because I enjoy asking these questions and getting to know you. And I look forward to meeting you in person. Since we are in Atlanta, I can only trust that will happen in divine time. Do you have any last words, like wisdom, and or if you had to communicate one good thing to everybody who's listening tonight or who might come across your story at some point in the future?
I would say, actually, before you said it, I was thinking that trust the God within you. Everything works out in your favor. There's a scripture that said, all things work out for the good of them that are called according to his purpose. And because we are here on this earth, we are called for a purpose. You may not know what it is. You may not know what it looked like, but you have a purpose. And trust the God within you. Ask the God within you questions, and he will talk to you, and he will lead you. Things will become synchronized, and you will follow the path. And you will, sometimes we don't realize that purpose is not an actual destiny. It's a journey. And make sure that you enjoy the journey.
Absolutely. We're meant to be joy. That's the greatest part about it all. I'm sure you are in your happy places. You are connecting and giving your wisdom and things. And I know it has to make your heart feel good to be able to see the impact that your gift has on others.
It's very humbling. It's very humbling.
Right. Well, Berwyn, thank you. And to each of you who tuned in, thank you. This week, I wish for you that your life is just going to be so exploded with blessings that those blessings are going to spill out and overflow onto the world around you, expanding that beautiful gift that we receive from the Creator. The light in me honors sees and loves the light in you. Namaste.